Live with some thoughts off the cuff, but some thoughts that I've been sitting with and spoken about in bits here and there about Gabriel Martinelli, Arsenal's Brazilian forward, Gabriel Martinelli. He's a kid that a lot of us love, by the way. People outside of Arsenal love him. People within Arsenal love him because he's a player who doesn't ever cheat the paying customer, the fan, the boss that he works for on effort. He's a good kid by all accounts, works really hard, and he's a beautiful story. Came from Brazilian fourth or fifth division, age 18, having tried out at different clubs in Europe. No one took a chance on him until just before his 18th birthday. Arsenal signed him, or around his 18th birthday, Arsenal signed him. He came in, instant hit. And over the last 24 hours or so, he's been getting a lot of plaudits, and I think deservedly so. I think he is a kid who a lot of people who know about him want him to do well. Like sometimes there are some players where people just don't like you. Player could be Bruno Guimaraes. I'm going to name another Newcastle player, Anthony Gordon. Some people don't like certain players. I think Martinelli is universally a player people like. Babyface, nice kid, no drama, humble beginnings. Now he plays in England for one of the top clubs. The thing that I want to chime in on this whole Martinelli chat, from my perspective, is like, first, like the player, there's a player there. There's definitely a player there. And so Martinelli is, worthy of a professional level existence, right? As a footballer. Like he's a good footballer. And any player who gets to, a club like Arsenal, there's something there. So I'm not here to protest the fan fest or the support for the player. I think the player and all players should get support. But Arsenal do have a problem here with the Martinelli situation. And to me, it's a problem of Arsenal's progress. Like Arsenal have progressed so far that now they've become a team that finds itself playing without space for forward runners. And Martinelli, more often than not, is more of a vertical runner and doesn't do he can do lateral runs, he can, but he doesn't seem to be a kid or a player who thrives in doing that more. And that's not his bread and butter. I can think of several occasions, even in a season, when there's been space behind. Thinking right now at Liverpool, for example, and the game he started, there's a counter-attacking opportunity. He runs straight and makes the job easy for Konate, and Konate can close both him and Gyökeres without having to work too hard. And because he's a player who plays on instinct, and he's an off-the-cuff player, and I like that about him. He's definitely not a finesse player. He has a little bit of that in spurts, but he's not a finesse player like an Eze or Saka, who can just slow you down and then, rush you. Or he's more of a hit you hard and hit you again and hit you again and hit you again, more of a one-paced player in a way. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just differences. It's difference in player styles. And what I have observed is that he hasn't been able to adjust to suit Arsenal's like football over the last 2 years, because it seems the direction of travel at Arsenal is that Mikel Arteta wants his team to suffocate their opponent, play in their opponent's final third or defensive final third, or play like basically what in basketball they call a half court game. It seems like that's Arteta's preference of football. He wants the center backs on the halfway line, and the game is played here in front of the opponent's defense. And in that circumstance, Gabriel Martinelli is not your guy. It doesn't mean he's a bad player. He is just not your guy when you're playing in little spaces. Trossard, Eze, Saka, even Waneri. We don't know about Dauman yet, but he looks like Dauman can play in little spaces based on his quick control and ball manipulation. But Martinelli is not the player for that. Like he is good in situations like last night when he came on. Space is open. Think of some of your favorite moments for Martinelli at Arsenal. One of the earlier ones that come to mind is that goal against Chelsea when we're playing with 10 men. He runs up a whole half of the pitch and N'Golo Kante slips, runs all the way, one on one with the keeper, finishes. And it was a 2-2 draw away at Chelsea playing with 10 men. He has many others. I remember like an opening goal against Liverpool away in one of the title challenging seasons, one of the 3 seasons where we've been coming second. Loves playing against Liverpool. He's a hustle bustle. He's got that Alexis Sanchez in him. He just doesn't have enough of a finesse to play in tight spaces. Another goal that I'm thinking of right now is a goal he scored in Madrid. It was a second goal. Game state is Madrid is chasing the game. They were 3-1 down at the time, right? Martinelli goes and scores the goal that makes it 5-1 for the tie. Yesterday, he breaks the game open again by getting a chance from the halfway line, runs a lot. Finish, you can debate, how good or not the finish was, but the player's confidence is low, so you can definitely feel like, you can forgive that he didn't apply the best of finishes in that situation. However, that's the perfect game state for Martinelli. Martinelli is a player that needs space. So I guess the thing here is that for me anyway, it's not that Martinelli has become a bad player. It's that him and Arsenal have Arsenal and Martinelli were doing this in 2020 and 2021, 2022, 2023, and he had his best season. And then Arsenal started doing this, and Martinelli kept going in the same. So he hasn't become a bad player. He's just become, over time, a player that doesn't fit with what Arsenal does. And that doesn't make Martinelli bad or Arteta bad. Martinelli. I just think that's why I'm saying we should pump the brakes unless Mikel Arteta is going to make Arsenal more vertical. And maybe one of the best things that's happening for Martinelli at Arsenal is that Gyökeres is a player that does similar things to him. So he's not just now a one odd guy in a group of forwards that like to, manipulate the ball and play in tight space. Because a lot of Arteta forwards thus far, Kai Havertz, he can play in little spaces. Trossard can play in little spaces. Jesus, the same. Saka, the same. Before that, Lacazette, he was not, like the one other guy who was kind of similar to Martinelli who succeeded was Aubameyang. But Aubameyang was, much, much later in his career, and he was a more capable runner and dribbler with the ball than Martinelli at the time he joined Arsenal. But even Alba was quickly phased out. I mean, that he was more attitude than his game. But I think Martinelli deserves a bit of chance. Maybe when the game is 60 minutes in, I think he should get a lot more minutes. And in fact, even yesterday in my game notes, I was thinking maybe Martinelli should be, while Havertz is not fit, should be playing the minutes Gyökeres doesn't play at centre forward. If the plan is for Arsenal to be more vertical in more games than they have been in the last 2 years, since we last saw Martinelli's best in what year is that? 22, 23. Maybe the goal is to then use him and allow him to be a player that plays instead of Victor for the minutes Victor is not there. And, he's been getting a lot of love today, and I think he deserves it. I think no player at Arsenal needed a confidence booster than Martinelli did, more so than Martinelli did. And I see here that, the club has released a thing on their website, and, they were saying that he has extended a record of having when he scored a game in a game for Arsenal, he's got the longest winning streak or no lost streak, sorry. So when Martinelli has scored in an Arsenal game, he hasn't lost, and the total of that is 46 games. 46 games, 38 wins, 8 draws. Next after that is Kai Havertz. So they I think he's rightfully getting a lot of love and plaudits after yesterday's game because there's a player there. But how many times does Arsenal find themselves with that game state? That's the problem here. I think the problem is not so much Martinelli by himself or Arsenal by itself. It's more like, can they find ways to find one another, the team and the player? If we're doing that for Gyökeres, maybe we'll do that a little bit more for Martinelli. But the player has to take some responsibility too, for sure. And he had a good 20 minutes yesterday and played in a perfect way for that game state. Got himself a goal within 30 seconds or so of coming on. And then he set up Leo's goal. I loved what he did, the way he took on the defender there, went outside, didn't do what he normally does and cross it with his weaker foot. And I think that sometimes takes away precision from his crosses. And he had enough speed to be able to turn around and make the pass with his stronger foot. And it was an accurate pass, found Trossard right around the 6-yard box. Boom, 2-0, game over. So I think Martinelli, yeah, like I just wanted to talk about him because he's a player who is a fascinating case in this Arsenal project under Mikel Arteta. I think he is a player like I don't think we should not sell Martinelli or Arsenal should not sell Martinelli if the chance is there to sell. However, I do think there's a player there that, like, while he's there now until January or until the summer, I think you find ways to put players in their best positions to succeed. And if Eze is going to be the left wing and Madueke is going to be the left wing, you have a player in Martinelli who can still come in on the wings, but I think maybe there should be some thinking towards giving him some minutes at center forward too, because I watch Gyökeres. He might be, I don't know if you know that he can play with his back to goal as well, because he's a big guy, but like to me he's better than Martinelli at the goal scoring thing from what we've seen, but like I think Martinelli can do a lot of the things that Gyökeres does. So if we're gonna adjust for Gyökeres, maybe then because Martinelli has similar traits in terms of his like hard running, he can press better than Gyökeres. I think he could get more from this new Arsenal dimension by being used either from the wings with the game states like it was yesterday, or try to use him the same way you're trying to use Gyökeres. Play him up front and then live with the results. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. Share, subscribe, like, do all the things that content creators like. But yeah, like I'm torn with this one. I don't think Martinelli deserves a lot of the hammering that he's been getting, but I also think the club can do a bit more to set him up for success. So I hope that between him and Mikel and the coaching staff, they can figure out ways to get something out of him, because he's a useful player, but you just gotta find that, yeah, it seems like he needs a lot of platforming compared to some of the other forwards that we have in the team. All right, cheers guys.